is now my honor to introduce to you, from the great Department of Georgia, the National Commander of the American Legion, Commander Dale Barnett.
Please be seated. Thank you so much, Chairman Brett. And I tell you what, wasn't that great to hear from Senator Isaacson on our Veterans Affairs? And if you don't believe now, you should believe now that I think the words of the American Legion are being heard. And I think you're making a difference. And that wasn't on my script, but he got me enthused. And I'm looking forward to tomorrow. It's our opportunity to be heard, to be a voice for all veterans as we visit lawmakers on the Hill both today and tomorrow. While I represent 2.2 million members as your national commander, it is you, our American Legion family members, that represent veterans and their loved ones in your community. This month, on the cover of the March issue of the American Legion magazine, is titled Invisible Bullets. It tells a story of veterans who were tasked in the 1970s with cleaning up radioactive waste that was left on Inawaktak Atoll during atomic testing from the 1950s. Invisible bullets entered our bodies, and we carry them with us daily, said one of those veterans, three-time cancer survivor, Paul Leard of Otisville, Maine. Invisible bullets describe so many of the ailments affecting today's veterans. Wounds such as post-traumatic stress disorder, traumatic brain injury, hepatitis C, or radiation poisoning may not be as obvious as an amputated limb, but they are still very real and at times just as deadly. We need to be the visible advocates for those affected with invisible wounds. This week, I know we had a study group that addressed access to the latest alternative treatments and cures, and we owe that to our veterans. We need to demand that the Department of Defense and Veterans Affairs better integrate the medical records of all who have served, and I will be addressing that tomorrow at the hearing. The record sharing of the 21st century too closely resembles that which frustrates so many veterans in the 20th century. We need to be the advocates who insist that VA be accountable to those it serves. We support reasonable protections for good employees, but corrupt, unethical, and incompetent behavior must never be tolerated by our veterans or the American Legion. During my testimony before the Senate and House Veterans Affairs Committee tomorrow, I will call on Congress and the VA to better execute the intent of the VA Accountability Act of 2014. It is not our position that the VA is totally failing veterans. In fact, it is my belief that most veterans, once they get to their health care provider, receive outstanding care. Most of the 305,000 employees of the Department of Veterans Affairs are highly dedicated individuals who truly serve veterans well. But it only takes a small percentage to produce what we have seen in the past 2-3 years of negative headlines that we read about nearly every day. But I want you to know, we are partners. We are part of the solution. We are not part of the problem in fixing VA. We need to look at the firewall at the Merit System Protection Board. It's frustrating both Congress and the VA Secretary. It has reversed many reasonable attempts at accountability. It shouldn't be more difficult to remove or discipline a poorly performing employee than it is to send an accused murderer to death row. When 5 senior VA witnesses failed to appear at a congressional hearing on October 21st, you better believe I was disappointed. When some of those same witnesses invoked their Fifth Amendment rights at a later hearing, and by the way, just as Senator Isaacson talked about, for those subpoenas to be issued, the motion was made by a Democrat. It was seconded by a Republican, and it was a unanimous vote. Your VA committee has got the message that veterans want accountability of our VA system. But I will tell you, I was very, very upset when the Merit System Protection Board overturned the motions of 2 of the regional office directors who abused taxpayer funds. I was shocked, to say the least. Regardless of where the blame lies, we can and we must do better. This is a presidential election year. Besides a plan for improving access, accountability, and the quality of health care for veterans, we should all insist that candidates tell us how they plan to keep America safe, whether it's addressing threats from ISIS, Al-Qaeda, or rogue states like North Korea or Iran. The United States must field a strong military, fully capable of protecting us here and abroad. We must insist the Second Amendment rights of veterans are secured enough that we are not creating a reason for people to avoid seeking treatment for depression or PTSD because they fear that doing so will permanently forfeit their ability to purchase a firearm. We must secure our borders and ensure that those who enter our country illegally are not rewarded with amnesty or benefits normally reserved for American citizens. And finally, let's call on Congress to at long last protect the symbol of our country, the American flag, from desecration. The overwhelming majority of Americans support protecting Old Glory, but we need a constitutional amendment in order to empower Congress to do this. There are many items of importance to the American Legion, which some of our speakers today will address. So thank you for listening. Now, without any further ado, I want to turn it back to Chairman Reistadt, and tomorrow let's hit that hill, let's attack, and let's be who we are, what we do, the American Legion, protecting veterans, and the greatest advocate for the greatest nation on earth, the United States of America. Thank you all very much.